Welcome back to the introduction series where I run you through each of the classes and elite specializations in Guild Wars 2. Today we're looking at what is in my mind the original, the first and foremost, the most basic concept out there in fantasy RPGs, the warrior. So the warrior is one of the original 8 classes in the game, and one of the earliest ones we knew anything about. It was unveiled second of all, after only the elementalist first. So in a lot of ways, the design of the warrior exhibits Guild Wars 2 at its purest, where skill animations were extremely clean and roles were very well defined. A big part of the warrior is its access to a massive arsenal of weapons. Don't forget, one of the big changes with the MMO was that we would have our skills bound to the weapon we are wielding, and so the devs wanted to design and introduce to us nice and early a character that would still have a ton of main hand weapon customization because they have just such a wide range of things to choose from. And even to this date, with the new elite specializations in the game, the warrior remains the class with the access to the most weapons. I think the theme of the class should be pretty clear. You are the brute on the front line. You are the soldier. You are right up there getting down and dirty with the enemies. No tricks, no excessive use of fancy magics. Just you, your armor, your weapons, and your battlefield prowess. The warrior is capable of a great many things. Like all classes in Guild Wars 2, I would say it's generally well balanced. You're never going to feel bad playing this class. You're never going to be going through the core regular content in the game and feeling like it's too difficult for you. The warrior will always be capable of dealing with this stuff. As for specific meta functionality, how well does the warrior do in raids and dungeons? Just as with all the other classes, it does fine. You will be able to find a slot. As for specific capabilities, well, that changes regularly based on current skill balance. There's no point me talking about it here, as it will probably be out of date by the time a lot of people get to the video. So just as with the rest of the series, I'm not going to bother. What I will say is that warrior usually excels at not only doing its own damage, but enhancing the damage of its allies too, with its banner skills we'll go over in a second, and mass spamming of might and fury offensive boons. The warrior is a durable class. It is of the heavy armor category, one of only 2 classes to be heavy at launch, and also on top of that, it has a high health pool too. Some of the highest health you can get in the entire game, innately for free. Honestly, I'm always quite jealous and surprised when I log in on my warrior and start playing it, finding just how comfortable I am, as opposed to some of the more squishy caster classes out there. I will say, don't make the mistake of thinking of the warrior as a noob class or overly basic. Mastering the warrior can actually take a lot of finesse, particularly because of how movement-oriented Guild Wars 2's combat is, and a lot of the time you want to be in there close, chasing after things that are dodging and moving away. Especially when you bring the elite specializations into the class too, I would say it's definitely not just something for beginners and bad players, though it is a pretty good place to start. I would say most other classes should try to aim to be more like the warrior. Easy to pick up, hard to master. Well, with the basics divulged, let's get in game and have a look.
This'll be fun. Next.
Right, so for this first section, let's talk a little bit about the warrior unique profession mechanic. Obviously, there's a lot unique about it, the way in which it accesses downstate, the way in which it uses all of its skills. But we do also have a totally unique mechanic, that's adrenaline. And adrenaline is lifted above our skill bar. No matter what type of warrior you're playing, you will have adrenaline available. And so the idea here is that as we attack enemies, this resource builds. We get angrier and angrier, filled with more adrenaline, and then we can trade that resource off for benefits, usually in the form of a burst skill. So every single weapon for the warrior actually has 6 skill slots. You have an auto attack chain of 3 skills. You've got all the other abilities up to 5, as with all classes, but the warrior, the master of weapons, gets a 6th. And this changes based on the weapon you have equipped. So right now, as you can see, I have a greatsword. We'll go through the greatsword skills in another section, but greatsword also gets arcing slice here. And you'll see it says it's a burst, and the tooltip's rather large. And the reason for that is that the more adrenaline we have, the harder our burst skills will hit. So here, I'll show you guys what I mean by that. We're going to come over to these Doliacs. And the damage numbers and stuff here, we're not in level 80 zone, so they're not going to be as high as you might otherwise expect. But the idea here is, as we attack, if you watch, I'm just going to auto-attack, but we'll see this bar's filling. And eventually we've actually filled a segment of adrenaline. You see this here? And now we're going to fill another segment of adrenaline. There you go, the second one. Each time we fill a segment, you'll see that the skill here, the burst skill, kind of flips over and it charges up. So now I'm at max adrenaline. And every time I attack, I can't gain over the max. So now I'm basically not gaining any value out of the mechanic. So what I want to do is spend that adrenaline on my burst skill. So that's bound to the hotkey Q for me. I think by default it's F1. And you'll see we spin around and we just killed a couple of them, did a ton of damage. The adrenaline goes away and now we can build it up again. And so through our specializations and our traits, we can augment this in any number of ways. Right now, you'll see I actually already have a trait on, written in blue there. I'm actually getting some endurance back every single time I use this. So I can dodge roll, use this, and then possibly get a dodge roll really quickly soon as well afterwards. So, you know, as with many of the professions, a ton of the traits are going to augment how this mechanic works. But that's the basic idea. Now, if I weapon swap, and now we've got dual-wielding swords out, you'll see that the burst skill has changed again. The burst skill only cares about your main hand weapon in the case of dual wielding. So if I unequip my second sword here, we only have one sword, but we still have the burst skill, you see? And so the reverse is true as well. If we only have an offhand sword, you'll see the entire adrenaline user interface has gone away. It's like adrenaline doesn't exist for us anymore because we don't have a main hand. Now, in general, in Guild Wars, you never run around without a main hand, so this doesn't matter, but it is an interesting little quirk. And because the warrior, as I've already explained, has access to so many weapons, that means there's a ton of burst abilities that you also get. Really, the idea that the warrior is the master of weapons, you can see now. So that's the idea of the unique mechanic. I'm going to go through all the weapon skills in the next section, and we'll just talk about the sixth ability, the burst one, as we do so. Okay, so we do have a lot of weapons to run through. I guess I'll go in the order of two-handeds first. And just as a little note as well, if you guys are ever confused about what you have available, remember on the build panel, there is this tab over here, weapon skills, and you can see everything listed out. Now, we could just mouse over these. And you've even got elite specialization stuff. We could mouse over these, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to equip them, and I'll show you a little bit of what their animations are like. Give you a little bit of a review over, you know, how strong I think each thing's been. But again, skill balance can change this stuff, so take it with a grain of salt. Let's look at Greatsword first. Greatsword to me is like the most iconic weapon for Warrior. It was an amazing warrior-y feeling thing in Guild Wars 1 also, mainly because of this skill in both games, 100 blades, and well, we'll see how it feels in the sequel. First of all, with the auto-attack chain, so it's going to be 3 hits, Greatsword swing, slice, and then brutal strike. Now, you'll notice the first 2 parts apply a little bit of vulnerability, which is nice. The third one is a really heavy hit. So my main advice about this auto-attack chain is if you're going to go for it, really try to squeeze that third hit out because it tends to hit super hard. And again, the numbers will be a bit low here. So first attack, you're going to swing over your left shoulder. Second attack, you swing over your right. Maybe we should equip some stability in a minute. And then the final attack is this one where we sort of jab out in front of ourselves. Look at this here. Ready? And in front. And it's that third one that can tend to hit really, really hard. Obviously, this cleaves 3 targets. The more you cleave, the more adrenaline you get, which is pretty nice. So that's kind of the first ability. Second, we have 100 Blades. 100 Blades, Greatsword in general is a pretty mobile weapon, and you'll see why I say that in a second. But 100 Blades is a very stationary ability. So if you can lock a target down in some way, you know, knock them down, stun them, whatever, that's when you really want to execute the 100 Blades, because otherwise they'll just walk out of it. But it's a long, slow animation. If you read the tooltip here, it says 8 packets of damage for over 1,000. Whenever you read over 1,000, it's going to be huge, right? This is a massive, massive strike. I remember even shortly after launch, you could see videos of some warriors getting over 100,000 damage on this one ability. It was nuts in the right party comp and stuff. And it's still really fun to use. So here's how it looks. We just keep swinging, swinging, swinging. It's like a ton of auto attacks all at once. And then the final one is like this jumping overhead strike. Really fantastic. And it's on a pretty low cooldown as well at that. So, you know, you can maybe execute a big one of these. And if the enemy isn't going to move again, like a lot of bosses in PvE don't, you might even be able to do this again. And if you're doing stuff like generating might on every attack, then you can see where the real value from this comes from. I'll try and use it on the dolly axe here. I'm going to cheat a bit. We're not talking about utility skills yet, but I'm going to equip one that gives me stability. Because otherwise they'll knock me back in the middle of this and it won't work. And there you go. You can see we did like a ton of damage to them just from that, which is fantastic. Next, we have skill 3. That's Whirlwind Attack. This is where some of the mobility starts coming from. What you'll see here is that we just spin in a direction, and it's like a big jolt of movement. If we have cripple on us and stuff that might otherwise slow us down, we can suddenly get a big burst of speed. The cool thing about this, though, is it does a ton of damage as it's moving. So this fur fly here, as we whirl through it, you'll see we actually hit him. And this can hit really hard, too. If you can fight something next to a wall, a really good tip on this one is, so if we drag him here, you can use the ability into the wall, and it will continue hitting them the whole way. Again, that didn't look very impressive, but trust me, this can hit hard. Greatsword is a very, very high-pressure weapon. So that's the whirlwind attack. Next, we have Blade Trail. You wouldn't really guess it from the name, but Blade Trail is a boomerang thrown ability. So there you can see we throw our greatsword away, and it spins as it goes. Anyone that it hits gets crippled. It's a little bit of damage. It's also a projectile finisher. So if you create a big burning field in some way, and you actually can on Warrior, you can throw this through and it will apply burning, or whatever combo you like. Finally, you have another movement ability. This is Rush. And unlike Whirlwind Attack, which has a slightly more limited distance. By the way, Whirlwind Attack is actually an evade for you. So you can dodge roll, stay alive, dodge roll, stay alive, Whirlwind Attack, and you're still staying alive the whole way, right? And this has created a gap as well that might get you to safety. So again, the fact that that's an evade is very powerful. Rush is not an evade. It's less defensive. It's on a longer cooldown too, but it takes you way further. This is Rush. It just goes and goes and goes. Now here's the thing. Rush does actually do damage to a target as well. So it's going to run you 1,200 range. But if you get the distance just right, this is a cool little tip. And remember, underneath the skill bar, you can see a little red bar that tells you if you're out of range. So here we're looking at that rabbit, and there's a red bar under there, which means that the rabbit's out of range. If you're slightly out of range with it, what can happen sometimes is you finish the rush, and then this final little leap here, you just saw that final swing will actually get you even further than you'd otherwise expect. So with both of these together, it's an incredibly defensive weapon in terms of creating gaps. And it's also got big, big, big damage. You'll just notice there's no way to set up the 100 blades here, and there's no easy way to set up the long, slow, clunky greatsword auto attacks. Finally, you have the bursted strike. This is arcing slice. This gives you fury, which obviously increases your crit chance, and it's a whopping amount of damage. It's a huge mass AoE hit. This one will cleave 5 targets at once, which is why it's so good to see against the dolly axe here. But what's also really powerful about it is if the dolly axe are below half health, this will hit way harder. So this guy's below half health. When I use it, you'll see it really chunks them. So timing arcing slice, using it really fast with quickness or whatever, this is how you suddenly burst people. It's the strongest, most versatile thing for PvP for a very long time on the greatsword. Well, I don't know. That's hard to say because of the movement. But nonetheless, it's a really, really fun skill. And yeah, you basically just you spin in a big circle around you, right? And so even if I'm facing away from this wolf here, right? The wolf's behind me. Let's move beyond these trees. I'm not going to face him. But if I hit my ability, you'll see we ended up facing him because of the way I turned the camera there. But even if you're running away, you can hit people. It's got very, very high quality of life on it, basically. So there you go. That's the greatsword. Let's look at another two-handed now. And I suppose since I just mentioned a fire field, and you guys just saw the little clip of it, let's look at longbow. So warrior does not get short bow, but it does get longbow. This weapon's kind of an interesting one because it can kind of do condition damage. It can kind of do flat damage. And the devs kind of said before launch they wanted it to be this big CG weapon. I'm not sure it really ended up there. But let's run through. First, you've got dual shot, which is a double strike of 2 arrows. As you'll see there, we just hit twice. Pretty good. Next, you get fan of fire, which will be 3 separate arrows all at once that apply burning. As you see here. And this also pierces. So what will happen is with our auto, you see it's going to hit this dolly axe and then they're going to stop moving. But with Fan of Flame, it will go through the dolly axe and hit them all. There's nothing that's going to stop them. So you can end up burning the whole group with those 3 arrows, as you see here. So if you put a lot of burning on your builds, you're going to be laughing on that one. He got Arcing Arrow. This is like your siege attack. It's massive range, big arc. You see I launch it, a big flaming arrow that blows up where it lands. Now, I didn't aim it at the dolly axe there, so you didn't really see it. But there's no condition damage on this whatsoever. It's just big, flat damage. And we'll see this here once again. which is pretty nice, pretty satisfactory, but I don't know. I wish this skill was a little bit different. Who knows where the balance will be by the time you're watching this video. Next, you got a big utility skill. This is Smoldering Arrow. This has ammunition, so I can cast 3 of these basically back to back, right? So 1, 2, and then 3. And now I have to start waiting for its regular cooldown. These are 100% combo finisher, and what they do is a quick little blind, basically. Once again, it can hit a lot of targets where it lands. Blind is something Warrior really doesn't get anywhere except on this one weapon. So, I mean, there are some other things when you look at the elite specializations, but really, this is your access to blind if you want it. It's the Smoldering Arrow. It's not as strong as, you know, other classes that specialize in blind. Warrior's not about all that trick lifestyle, but they have it. And then finally got Pin Down, returning from Guild Wars 1. This is an immobilize ability, so, and it also does a lot of bleed. So this is a strong skill. Obviously, it's on your 5th slot, long cooldown. You're going to land it, and it will pierce again. And you see we've actually stopped a ton of these Doliacs. They can't move. They're bleeding to death now as well. That bleed will linger for ages. But what this is really good for is a setup into your arcing arrow. So you pin them down, and then you arcing arrow, and it explodes on them afterwards. Or indeed, it's also a good setup for the final skill, the combustive shot. So this is a giant... We want to stay in combat here so that we keep getting our adrenaline. This will ignite the target area. So basically, we're going to paint the ground in this massive AoE with fire. Now, if you watch my introducing the Elementalist video, you'll see Elementalist gets a very similar skill to this, but instead of fire, it's like a field of water and cleansing. This is kind of the reverse of that. The Warrior just gets this massive burn field. And it truly is huge. This is one of the biggest fields in the entire game. And yeah, when you're in here, that's now a burning field. So if we use any of our 100% combo finisher stuff, they'll apply even further burning. Remember the greatsword that I talked about? You can drop a field, swap to the greatsword, blade trail for... Oh, we don't have it anymore. We're now sword. And so on. Anyway, you get the idea. And it's basically just mass AoE. That's how we use the longbow. That's different to how the Ranger uses the longbow. Again, you might want to go and watch that video. The Ranger has kind of different flavor of AoE and more sort of single target snipey kind of things on there. So yeah, they have it. That's longbow. Next, two-handed, we can go with hammer. Hammer is a massive crowd control weapon with lots of abilities to push people around and set them up. So it's also, just like the greatsword, very slow and very clunky, so you do want to be aware of that. Let's run through the auto attack, hammer swing, bash, and smash. This really is just a slow, heavy hitting chain. There's nothing else on there. It's just slow damage. So let's see, say with the Furfly, you know, I would have really expected some kind of CC on here. The important thing is the third one, again, where what you'll notice is we attack here, we attack, and what's the last one? We go overhead and we slam the ground. Did you see that big dust cloud that came out when we slammed the ground? That's actually a pretty good AoE with high quality of life on it. So again, if we go over to the Doliacs, they should have respawned. Oh, they haven't respawned yet. But basically, you can get a lot of, you know, AoE packets of damage out, which is sort of another thing that the hammer's pretty good for. Next, we have Fierce Blow, which is a good, steady attack that does more damage if they're already stunned or something. So you want to set them up with some kind of stun, and then if you land the Fierce Blow, it's going to hit harder. But also, this applies weakness, okay? So weakness obviously reduces enemy damage massively, and you'll see here we land this. Now, Fierce Blow is actually a really important combo skill. Like, in a lot of ways, it's the heart and soul of this bar. By the way, here, I'll try and show you the dust cloud hitting people at a good range. You see how we hit that Doliac behind us there? So, Fierce Blow, there is more to learn, but we'll see that when we look at the other skills. The idea, though, is it's a setup for some things, and it's a payoff for other things. It's really, really well made. Next, now this one's pretty good. Hammer Shock. This is kind of a ranged ability. It's weird, right? What we're going to do is we're going to slam the ground, and it will do this big cone out in front of us, like this sound wave out in front, and anyone in the cone gets crippled. So what that means you can do is if someone's chasing you, you can, like this wolf, I can do this, and now I can run away from the wolf. He stopped to use a skill anyway, but if he tries to come over, he's just going to be lumbering ahead, and I can actually get away. And now that I've got this gap, let's say he manages to come all the way over again. When he finally does, I can do this again, and because it's pretty high range on this, I can always keep them at bay, which is nice. Next, we've got Staggering Blow. We can just push people back. It's a big spin around us, and you see all three wolves got knocked away. Long cooldown on this one. But while they're knocked away, that's when you'd want to follow up with a Fierce Blow, for example. And then finally, Backbreaker. So Backbreaker will be an immense knockdown for a really long period of time. Maybe you weren't impressed with the Staggering Blow. I'll do it again here. Ready? Maybe that doesn't look very long to you. You're not very impressed with that. Well, check out Backbreaker. We knock the wolf down, and he's stuck there, just standing there for ages. We can sheath the weapon and everything. And that's plenty of time for us to land a fierce blow in the middle of it. Also, you can hit 3 targets with this, which is really nice. Here's what's better. That was a 3-second knockdown you saw. If you fierce blow first, so you might want to fierce blow second because it will do more damage. But if you fierce blow first and apply weakness, backbreaker lasts longer on weakened foes. So check this out. Weakness, now backbreaker. And he's down for even longer, a whole other second, which then you can modify even further with, you know, runes and sigils and stuff. Like, try this out with a sigil of paralyzation. Well, maybe that doesn't work on knockdown. I'm not too sure. In any case, really cool how you can kind of combo out of this skill 2 on this weapon set and play with it. Finally, you've got the burst skill. This, again, is a massive CC. So, oh, sorry about the cut there. I just had a phone call. So, Earthshaker. Earthshaker will not do more damage the higher the adrenaline. It will last longer as a CC. So, this one's fantastic because it's a jump. So, I can jump all the way over there. And then when I land in that massive radius, everyone will be stunned. Really good to sort of show off on the Dolyak pen here, I think, in a second. So, Hammer, you'll notice, has barely any mobility at all. But Earthshaker is where you'll be getting it. And you can jump on in. Everyone's stunned. Then you can Fierce Blow after that, doing the extra damage from the Fierce Blow. Also applying the weakness. Then you can Backbreaker out of that. And then, you know, when they stand up, maybe you can Staggering Blow. Maybe you've got enough adrenaline to, once again, Earthshake. And in this way, you'll see how, like, having this final extra skill really allows the combos to start going off the charts. So I really, really, really like this. And, yeah, so you can push people back with this one, jump back in, cripple them while they're down, and just keep the fierce blows rolling. Nice weapon, Hammer, and I think probably really underrated by a lot of the Guild Wars 2 community. Final two-handed weapon is, once again, a ranged weapon, like the longbow. It's Rifle. So again, never let anyone tell you that Warrior is just a melee class. It's not, just as with all Guild Wars 2 professions. You can play a mix of ranges. So yes, Rifle. Now, while the longbow was very, very sort of AoE oriented, the Rifle is much more single target oriented and much more power rather than condition. There's a lot of fun ways you can play with this. So let's just jump in. First, you've got Fierce Shot. Fire a shot at your foe, gaining bonus adrenaline if they are vulnerable. So we're not going to be seeing that here, but we can just sort of pew away and take advantage of this. The skill 2, though, you'll see, is Aimed Shot. And it has ammunition. So there's a lot of ammunition skills on Rifle. So we can actually do 2 blasts of this if we like. Aimed Shot will cripple, allowing us to keep our distance. And 8 vulnerability, which is actually a lot of vulnerability. Now that that vulnerability is on there, our auto attacks are building our adrenaline. And you're going to see you really want to be using this adrenaline skill here often. So aim shot into the autos or get your vulnerability in some other way. Vulnerability isn't hard to come by in the game and the balance as I record this video. So honestly, you should be fine with that. And that's just kind of the idea. Don't forget about the fact that it's a physical projectile, so it will combo with any other stuff. Next, you got Volley. Now this skill is kind of amazing. Fire a volley of shots at your foe. And so you'll see here, we go pew, 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 and it just keeps going. This is kind of like the ranged equivalent of 100 blades in some respects. It pierces, again, so if I aim at the Dolyak at the back, or I try to, it will hit all the ones in front. And you see there's actually a lot of numbers going there. This hits hard. Seriously. If they're not dodging or obstructing or whatever, if there's no projectile blocking, Volley is a scary, scary ability. A lot of people like to think of the burst skill here instead of Volley as like their main damage dealer, but don't overlook this one. Next, you got Brutal Shot, which is, again, about keeping your distance. Let's say one of these Dolyaks will leave the pen. Maybe we can go and intimidate, say, the Furfly here. This Furfly is going to run at me. So what I can do is throw Brutal Shot out, which will immobilize, stop it moving, and I actually roll backwards. I think it went kind of weird because I was against the hill there. But I'll actually roll backwards at the same time, evading as it occurs. I thought it would actually give me a little bit of distance, but I guess it hasn't here. So yeah, that's the idea. Very simple. It will also cleanse us if we're immobilized. So that's a nice selection. There you go. See, we roll back. I don't know why it didn't work those other 2 times. Maybe because I was holding S on the keyboard. But using that plus Brutal Shot, they shouldn't really be able to keep up to you. You can keep doing your backpedaling, or you can run away and then turn back around, whatever you think is most efficient, as long as you're juggling these. And then another ability to keep a gap. That's Rifle Butt. We'll want something that we can actually hit it with here. This is just a massive pushback. This is like something even Hammer would be jealous of. Ready? Boom. We push him right back, straight into the immob. straight into a bit of cripple while we volley on him. Then we've got the vulnerability there, a ton of it, and we're auto-attacking. We're getting our adrenaline. For the final skill, which is Kill Shot, which is just a massive burst of damage. Again, it pierces, right? So, this is basically just a snipe, right? Epic damage, more damage the more adrenaline you have, so you really want to have a lot when you cast it. Do it through a crowd if you like, and you'll see we get a huge amount of damage hitting every single Doliak as we go. And now you can see, as soon as you've Kill Shot, you want it back. So that's where the auto attack's doing better with the vulnerability is kind of nice. Another little thing, by the way, over on the rifle butt, if you manage to rifle butt someone, it actually refreshes ammunition on the other sides of the rifle weapons. This is actually quite a new change I think a lot of people aren't familiar with. I personally haven't played with this patch too much. But you know how we can like aim shot twice and now we're out of ammo? We kind of have to wait for more ammo to come in. Or volley, we can run out of volley, and all of them basically. Now when I knock him back, you'll see suddenly we get all of our ammo back. So the idea of even moving in just to push them back and keep your pressure going in is actually kind of a viable thing to run for. And again, you can augment this with traits in so many fun ways that just means you really do feel like a killer with this rifle. I love this weapon on Warrior. It's probably my favorite rifle user in the game, the Warrior, funnily enough. I know everybody thinks about blades, but there you have it. Let's run now into our single-handed weapons. And in fact, what I'm going to do for this section of the video is I'm going to dual wield everything. So let's look at our swords, for example. But what I want you to remember as we go through this is we can combo in any number of ways. And it really is kind of mind-blowing. So here we're dual-wielding swords, but what if we want to have a mace instead of a second sword? Sorry, why is that not equipping here? Oh, we're in combat with something. I didn't realize we were in combat. Let's just move away. There we go. If I want to equip this mace, I can do that, and now I've got a weird mix. Or if I go mace sword, I have an even weirder mix because it's going to change the burst skill as well, because the burst skill only cares about main hand. So, you know, Warrior can have so much fun playing around and mix and matching. I'm going to show you the weapons in pairs, though. Not that they necessarily have to be equipped this way. So we got sword, main hand, sever artery, gash, hamstring, all classic Guild Wars 1 skills. You'll notice it's basically just a big bleed chain. You'll find Warrior is kind of a hybrid weapon. It's split with condition damage and power. So you're going to be bleeding people. After this auto attack chain, you see how the bleed just keeps going up. Now I don't even have to attack him anymore. He's going to keep losing health. And if I build more into that bleed and that condition damage, you know, I can weight it whichever way that I enjoy. Next, we have the skill 2, which is a great mobility skill. It's called Savage Leap. It will leap us like this, kind of through the air. We get an overhanded swing as we go. So you don't have to worry about the damage on it too much. It cripples when it lands, but I don't know. That seems like it's not too big of a part of the weapon. And then finally, you got Final Thrust for the main hand. So this is a really big hit that's got a long, slow wind up. But if they're below half health, it gets a ton more effects. So it hits really hard for base damage, and it bleeds really hard as well. So this Furfly will get him below 50%. Then you land that final thrust, and you know this is satisfying in the same way that Kill Shot is satisfying. We just showed a second ago. Right, so you get just this massive chunk of damage. Look at that. He's bleeding to death there. He had nearly 20 bleeds on him just from us using a few autos and final thrust. It's nuts. That's a lot of bleed on there. Now for the offhand, again, it's supposed to be a hybrid weapon. It kind of depends what the current skill balance is like. The skill 4 is actually a double skill. It's 2 different ideas. First, you just throw the sword. Now, that's impale, and it just kind of gets thrown out. Now, if you miss that sword for any reason, like I did, because I just threw it at a bush, if you miss, it's not going to do anything. But if you actually land it on a target, it's going to apply a ton of more condition damage. This time, though, instead of bleeding, it's going to inflict torment. So that's a little bit more condition damage range. So if they're cleansing or something, all of a sudden you've got like a cover condition. It will also pulse cripple on them, and it will last a good while, right? So here, check this out. I'm going to throw at that Doliak. Now, as that Doliak tries to attack me, he's going to be limping around. Maybe he will. He's trying to leave. But see, we got all this torment on him. I wasn't even near him. So that part of it is all condition damage, really. I mean, it's a condition damage ability there. However, what we've done there is we've actually thrown our sword into the target. Like the sword is stuck in them. And if I run over during this time, I can rip that sword back out, and with the ability called Rip. And Rip is a massive chunk of flat damage. So again, half of it is Condi, the other half is flat damage. The Condi is a lot easier to apply, though, in this situation. Much easier. And in truth, it's kind of tricky to get the Rip going. I'd really like to see them rebalance the Rip a little bit. But here, I'll show you again on this puppy. We throw it in. We walk over. We rip it out. And you see you get that 500 damage just came out there. And obviously in the perfect world, you can throw it in and rip it out at the perfect moment. But it is tricky, so I do warn you. Finally, we have the skill 5, which is a parry ability. You do see these in a few places. Mesmer's got a couple of them. So riposte, as we hold it down, we're actually blocking. We're defending ourselves. If this wolf were to attack us while we were doing that, we would block. And then what you can do is counterattack when that occurs. If you want as well, though, there is another option. And that is to end the block early in exchange for adrenaline. So here, I'll show you again, because as we mouse over, you'll see there's two tooltips. See? You get adrenaline rush. So stop blocking and gain adrenaline, and that bumps our adrenaline up a bit. Right now, we're not fighting, so it's going down, but it did jump up a bit. The flip over is a bit weird there. I don't know. I wish that this was a little bit different. Oh, there you go. So you get a nice big counterattack. Again, more bleed. Look at that, 8 bleed. So really, I think these days the devs have pushed it more into a Condi place. But there is some flat damage on there too, especially with the funnel thrust. We do, of course, have the burst for the sword. So let's build this up. It's called Flurry. Flurry is kind of like 100 blades. It will lock you in place. You can't move. But this has the added advantage of also locking them in place at the same time, because it applies immobilization as it's going. So please let us stay in combat here. So here, I'm going to immobilize this wolf as I spin, and it's hitting 3 targets here, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and it stacks a crap ton of bleed up again. So you can really have a lot of fun with this. If you're playing some kind of Condi variant, Flurry is the way to go. If you're just pure power, I would suggest maybe a different weapon, because, you know, part of the damage of this kind of wants you to have condition damage, right? And if you're not building it, you're sort of half in the pressure that you'd otherwise have. But yeah, you are vulnerable in all the ways that you're vulnerable during 100 blades. And I actually think this animation lasts a little bit longer. There you go. That's Flurry again. Looks very cool with certain swords as well, just for what it's worth. In all the ways that 100 blades was. Right, let's look now at dual wielding maces. So maces, once again, are about crowd control. But the thing is, where hammer was AoE and big blasts and stuff like Earthshaker, mace is a little bit more single target oriented, or, you know, small scale, I'd rather say, because you can cleave 3 people with the auto attack chain. Speaking of which, we've got mace smash into mace bash and then pulverize. Pulverize, the third attack, is once again the really important one. It's going to do a shit ton more damage, and on top of that, it applies weakness. So if all you do is auto attack chain forever, you can actually keep weakness up on multiple targets. So here, I'm not taking much damage because they're glancing and, you know, we've inhibited them. And it really will be a lot of weakness. It's very good in team scenarios for certain metas and certain times where weakness was harder to get access to. So it's a nice chain, but again, it's kind of slow, kind of cautious. You want to be careful about it. Next, we have another riposte style attack. It's counter blow. This doesn't have a flip over. It's just block the next attack, and if you do, then you will swing back and do a ton of vulnerability to them. If not, you get a bit of adrenaline. Oh, there you go. Actually, we can double tap. There you go. It is the same. Adrenaline rush. So yeah, we just hold the mace out in front of us. Very fast recharging. You know, when you're in that crowd control kind of play style, you want to have a bit of durability. There it is. Next, you got pommel bash. Really quick. This is lightning fast. Watch this. Boom. It's just done. You smack them with the pommel, and it's daze. So they'll still be able to run around. You know, if I daze this wolf here, he'll continue pursuing me, but he can't execute any new attacks, and I'll interrupt him. So if I start fighting the wolf and then I pommel bash him, you might get an interrupt, right? This is really useful because it's so fast and quick to execute. There, we can block him, keep the autos going. Next, we have crushing blow. So this has kind of got a bit of a wind up, but this will give us might, them vulnerability, and it will actually give us a lot more if they were already disabled, okay? So if we pommel bash straight into the 4 while the daze is there, then we can get the added benefit out of this. But you got to be quick with it. And again, lengthening that daze is kind of a good idea. There's another way to CC people, though. That's the skill 5. That's Tremor. So Tremor, you smash the ground and you send out a tremor, a shockwave through the earth. Watch this. Ready? I'll throw it along the road. And it goes a long way. 1,200 range. That's longbow range. A very long way. Not only that, but it's got good damage, and it's a 3-second knockdown. Remember freaking hammer? Remember the skill 5 on hammer? You have to be in melee for it. This thing will roll all the way along the road. It can hit up to 6 targets. 6 targets? That's such a weird number. Usually it's 5 in the game. They'll all get knocked down, and you're not even standing anywhere near them. Tremor is one of my favorite warrior skills. It's so crazy. And it's so protective of you in, like, dungeons and stuff, like when the game came out. Look at that. We just knocked down all these Doliacs. And then finally they get up and they move. So, you know, you could tremor someone, then crushing blow while they're on the ground, so that you get double vulnerability and double might. You know, by the way, double vulnerability, if they're CC'd when you learn that, that means you're putting 20 vuln up in one ability. 20 vuln spike. Let's show you that again, right? So I'm going to tremor this puppy, and then I'm going to use the skill 4 on it straight away. Look at this. 20 vuln for a long time. I mean, talk about a setup for your allies. That's nuts. Or, indeed, you would then weapon swap and use your greatsword stuff or whatever, because obviously that's the idea, that you're bouncing these different weapon capabilities together. Truly nuts. Finally, we have the burst, which is called Skull Crack. It's a lot like the Hammer Burst. The more adrenaline you have, the longer it will last. This is a stun. This one, however, is only on that target, okay? One foe. They'll be stunned for a long time, but this is definitely weaker than Earthshaker that the Hammer gets. So, you know, where you gain a lot with Tremor, you lose something with the Skull Crack. Kind of depends on the situation that you're in, obviously. But yeah, you're not going to be leaping across the map with this one. You just got to sort of chunk them in the head, and there you have it. And so this also can be a setup for Crushing Blow. You'll notice on a lot of these warrior weapons, there's something that sets up something else. And, you know, they bounce back and forward. So there's always fun, weird little things for you to think about. So you can be a little bit jazzy with the gameplay. And this is what I meant at the start of the video, you know. Just because a lot of this stuff can feel simplistic at face value, the little interactions and combos really do put warrior to a fun place. So that's dual swords, that's dual maces. What else have we got? Well, I think we're on to offhands now, aren't we? Oh, dual axes. My mistake. Who could forget dual axes? Dual axes are kind of like great swords, except they're fast. So they're all about damage. They're all about blowing things up. There's no real mobility on here. There's a little bit of range, but it's all about crazy damage pressure. And oh boy, does it have it. So the auto attack chain. Chop, double chop, triple chop. So what does that mean? That means that the first time you swing, you'll only swing once. The second skill will double attack, and then the next one will triple attack. So over all three of them, you're actually attacking 6 times in 3 skills. So it's just very, very rapid strike. So watch this here. 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. And then we're back. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You pair this with quickness, and you're really doing a lot of damage. And you notice even just there that was killing it way faster than, say, with the mace. Next, you've got Cyclone Axe. This is a really fun skill I usually open with. It will put Fury on you, meaning you're critically hitting a lot more. It will vulnerability on them. And, you know, it's a well finisher if you're in a field. But what it will do is a couple of packets of high damage here. So you run in, spin around like that. There you go. And then you go straight into your auto attacks or whatever else you want to do. Quick little spin that you can just readily go back to. So we can spin again here. And then you can spin again. Good radius on it as well. It's one of those ones that will hit people from behind. Next is your only little bit of range. This is what you do to try and close up to someone before you grind them to pieces. It's throw axe. 900, so it's not that high, but it's about here. This is how far you can get it. Throw the axe, and you'll cripple. The idea definitely is that they're running away from you when you do this, because they do not want to be next to an axe person while vulnerable. And then obviously you just get in there and you blow them up. It's got ammunition on the axe as well, so you can kind of throw 2 back to back, or you can pace yourself out. Here's 2 back to back, as you can see there. Pretty simple. Next is an unbelievably strong ability, Dual Strike. So this is a source of quickness that you don't need a trait for, and you don't need a utility skill for. It's right here always. That's very powerful. It's 2 hits, 2 strong hits that land at once. Here, I'll show you the animation. We go overhand, we swing both of them. Now, if they hit, they'll hit hard, and they'll apply quickness to you, which means that now when we, you know, if we do this, we can go quickness, Cyclone Axe, straight into autos. Oh, and I need to spam the button because I don't have auto attack on. And you'll obviously grind through them a lot quicker. Everyone knows how strong quickness is in the game. Or even better, you can spam your quickness into the skill 5, Whirling Axe. Whirling Axe turns you into a tornado of death for a long period of time. 5 targets, you're doing well finishes the whole time. It's 15 packets of damage. You actually move faster. This is like you have super speed on you while this is up. Movement speed increase of 50%, you'll see there. So you can keep next to people, even especially if they're crippled. You'll see it does nothing. No vulnerability on there, nothing. It's just 15 hits of damage. This is a mobile 100 blades. That's what this is. You're vulnerable to getting counter CC'd or whatever. And what's even better, not only do you have a mobile 100 blades on Axe Offhand, but you have your own quickness for it as well. So what I would actually recommend usually, if they're tanky enough, is open with the Fury and the Vuln, quickness, and then straight into a quickness skill 5. and you'll kill them straight up. Finally, you have Eviscerate, which was a really potent, like, classic ability in the original game. This is a single target spike on a leap. So there you see we do that leap. But I don't know, I think this needs some work. It's not a very long distance leap anymore. It can be really, really tricky to land. The higher adrenaline, the more damage you'll do. And it is a big spike of damage, believe me. But, you know, if you look at, like, Greatsword's Arcing Slice, which does more when they're on half health and all that kind of stuff, I feel like Eviscerate has fallen away over the years. Arcing Slice doesn't have a leap, sure, but the leap on this is very, very weak, and Arcing Slice does have really good range. So, I don't know, Eviscerate, I'm a little bit disappointed in by these days, but it is one of the most satisfying things for you to land. You'll see it gives you a little bit of might as well at the same time. And so there you have it. That's 8. Axe. That's all the dual-wield weapons. There's some really cool combos, just so that you guys know, like Axe main with mace off was really good for dungeons back in the day, because you could knock everything down, vulnerable the hell out of it, and then just be, you know, beating the crap out of it. The reverse is even an interesting idea. Lock someone down with a skull crack straight into the dual strike whirling axe. Then we've got offhand. So I'm going to put a sword on as the main for demonstrating these. You've got 2 offhand choices. First of all is Warhorn. So Warhorn, believe it or not, actually starts pushing Warrior into a supportive, like, play style. And a bunch of its utility skills can do this as well. A Warhorn gives your allies boons and help, really. So first you've got Charge. Give yourself Swiftness and everyone else around you. So these are going to hit 10 targets, which means a whole raid group, for example, will get these. So you can charge, and running around in the open world with Swiftness is always nice. There's lots of ways to get Swiftness, so really it's not that great. The other nice thing about this, though, is that when you cast Charge on someone, their first attack, when they actually finally hit someone, is going to do 25% more damage. So if you cast Charge, and then you Final Thrust, you've just turned a spiky ability into like a Mega Spike. But all your allies can take advantage of that. So if you charge and then weapon swap to a rifle and kill shot, for example, is another idea. So that's kind of a new update as well. This is also a blast finisher. So if you have a longbow, you put a fire field down. When you charge, you'll give everyone might. Having access to blast finishes is really strong, and Warhorn gives you 2. Because not only is Charge a blast finisher, so is Call of Valor. By the way, Charge also gets rid of all bad conditions for movement. So if your guys are crippled and chilled and they're like struggling to move, you can cast Charge, get rid of those bad conditions, give them Swiftness so that they're moving really quickly, and they've got their next first attack is really big. So it's just a very, very fun skill. Next, Call of Valor will cleanse 3 of any condition. So what you can do, if everyone's just got really, really bad conditions on them, you can cast Charge to get rid of all the, like, mobility ones. And then you can cast Call of Valor to get rid of whatever's left over. And all of a sudden, you've cleansed 10 players of 6 conditions. You can hit 60 conditions in 2 buttons. It's crazy, guys. Call of Valor also gives barrier. So overhealing. So now we have a little bit about, you get a cool animation here as well with Call of Valor. And everyone gets that. That means if you build healing power on a warrior, all of a sudden you're getting a lot of value out of that. Also vigor, so they dodge a bit more. And it's a blast. So that's the Warhorn. Obviously it's much more of a selfless weapon. And then also we have shield. So what you're looking at here is the sword and shield combo, which is pretty nice. The shield abilities are very basic. When we look at Guardian, you'll see that Guardian has a lot of magical shield abilities. Warrior doesn't really have any magic with them. It has a very simple shield bash, where we lunge in and we stun someone, which is a good setup again. Or we have shield stance, where we're blocking the whole time. Now, don't underestimate these. These are actually very strong. For example, if I have a greatsword in this set, I can, like, dodge. Oh, sorry. Hold on. How have I messed this up? That was just a sword. Oh, yeah, we were using sunrise. So I could, like, dodge, and then I could dodge again, and then I could use my greatsword here, and then maybe dodge again. Then I could maybe weapon swap, which might give me more endurance, and maybe dodge again. And then shield stance. And the shield stance allows me to block long enough to get back into the greatsword, where suddenly I'll do this again and I'll move again. And through comboing these, all of a sudden you can have mass mobility and mass survival, and that's where a lot of the finesse comes from. And a lot of it kind of gets unlocked just by having these extra few seconds of safety. Obviously, sometimes enemies will get through block, but it's really good. And a nice little shield bash as well, kind of protects you as well if you think about it. So you have it. I think let's have a quick look here. That is the majority of the weapons. I haven't shown you underwater, but we will mouse over those now. So underwater, you get the spear. Tsunami Slash, Parry, a Barbed Pull, Mariner's Frenzy. They're pretty fun. I actually think Tsunami Slash is the most fun. Harpoon Gun is your ranged underwater option. Repeating Shot is very cool. It's like a ton of like spears, harpoons that you fire out, and they just keep pushing the target back again and again and again and again. There's nothing like this on overground combat because it would just be so obnoxious. But underwater, you get this cool ability. And then for downstates, you actually get some cool ideas for Warrior. Warrior has one of my favorite downstates in the game. Let's actually get ourselves killed here. I'll swap this signet. Let's get all the Dollyaks angry with us. And we'll go down. So our auto attack in downstate is going to be to throw rocks, just little rocks. Come on, do you guys want to attack? There we go. Which really aren't going to offer much. Our skill 2, though, is the hammer toss. You throw a hammer out that you've grabbed, which is a long knockdown if it lands. The problem is that they can dodge away and move from it. And the skill 3 is a really special one, Vengeance. So if I can survive in downstate here, and I'm going to try and do that with this skill. This is not a warrior skill. This is just a general one. If I can survive, eventually Vengeance will come up. Now, I've made it the critical amount of time. If I Vengeance, I stand up, and I'm alive again. You'll see I'm glowing, but only for 10 seconds. Now, if I can score a kill during these 10 seconds, I might be able to rally myself. If I can't score a kill in these 10 seconds, let's see, did we get it? No, we didn't get it. We die. So there's a little bit of randomness there. But that's the idea, that you get to fight again. No one else in the entire game has something so powerful that they can be basically dead and allowed to keep fighting to that degree. Like, it's nuts. Vengeance is very fun, and it's got some cool traits, which we'll be able to get into in just a moment. First, though, let's have another section on utility skills. Alright, so the first category of utility skills to look at are the physicals. Physical training. Now, these are usually like really good animation-oriented skills where the warrior is going to use their body in some way to attack the foe. It's like unlocking new attacks. I kind of think of them in a lot of ways like weapon skills. They tend to be on lower cooldowns. It's a fun set. Let's see what we get. First, there's kick. And you can see a kick here, literally, as you can imagine. We're going to kick out in front of us. This will actually knock someone back a little bit, and it has ammo, so you can use it multiple times. It's got maximum of 3 ammo, so you can kick, and then kick again, and then kick again. There's a bit of a cooldown between the 3, but it's amazing how often you can actually hold this up. And so when you look at something like kick, that's a way to actually land a nice, comfortable arcing slice, you know? Maybe kicking, because it's a little knockback into 100 blades, is tricky, but there you have it. Next, we've got Throw Bowler. This is going to be a ranged ability, a bit like our Greatsword's Blades Trail, but now what we can do is throw these chains out that will lock someone out. Lock someone in. So here, I'll throw this here. You're going to have that immobilized there, and they will stay in a whole 100 blades of that. Imagine that we've got our axe. Maybe you want to throw the bowler, and then you're going to start using your abilities afterwards. So these tend to be CC setups, I would say. A lot of the physical skills are. Next, we've got Bull's Charge, returning from Guild Wars 1. Bull's Charge is a lot like Rush. It's going to move you really, really, really far. It's an evade as it's going. It's a leap finisher. And then when it finally connects, it will knock them down for a long time. Watch this. So Bull's Charge, and the wolf is on the floor, and I can 100 blades the whole way through that. Bull's Rush, quickness 100 blades. That was a pretty classic combo back in 2012. And to a certain degree, it still works. Obviously, because these are doing crowd control damage, they're hard Cs. These are all really good for break bars as well. Finally, you got Stomp. Stomp you guys just saw in the little trailer. It's like a mini Earthshaker, really. As though you've got a hammer, even though you don't have a hammer. What we're going to do is jump forwards. And what's interesting about this one is that while Earthshaker knocks people down, Stomp launches. So check this out. If I jump into the Dolyak pan with Stomp, they're not just going to fall over. They're going to go flying away from me. In all directions. As you can see, like, look how far this guy went. They go very far away. I actually love Stomp. This is really good for getting people out of objectives if you need to. Good break bar damage. And the cool thing about this as well is it's a stun break. So if I've been knocked down, I can just suddenly turn around and say nope, and I can jump far away. You know, it's movement for you. It's a launch. It's fantastic. Really, really interesting skill, and there's a blast finisher where it lands as well. There is a healing physical as well, which is weird because, you know, so many of these are like bodily movement kind of things. It's called Mending. Which is kind of a fun reference to the original game where monks would get mending. Mending here is a quick little condition cleanse for you. 5 condies just ripped off of you. And it's not a massive heal, but you can use it really regularly. Look at that. That's only a 12-second cooldown. And then we can use it again. And then we can use it again. And when it comes to one of the traits, this is actually kind of nice to keep a trait up. So don't overlook mending. It's very easy to put, say, the heal sig on and enjoy the passive effects of it. But mending over time, as long as you're willing to keep spending the cast time, is actually very good. And even against conditions. Don't overlook it. And then you've got the elite as well. So this is one of my favorite elites in the game. It's a transform elite. What this will do is make you way tankier. All damage is reduced by 50% incoming on you. It pulses stability on you so that nobody can actually counter CC you. It gives you a little bit of swiftness, as you can see here. You are an unstoppable machine that charges around. And on top of all of that, it will change your skills as well to new rampage abilities. So let's see what they are. And I'll have to show them to you quickly. We get an auto attack chain, punching people, unarmed combat. As you can see here, we can become massive. You get a big kick. You get a dash. You get a boulder that you can throw at people. And then you get a giant seismic leap, which is basically stomp. So what you'll see here is this is like the physical skills. It's like kick and it's like stomp and stuff, but you've got them reusable on the left-hand side of your bar now. So you can just charge out with a ton of those. You basically become this ultimate juggernaut tank. It doesn't last that long. I wish these lasted a bit longer in PvE, all the elite skills like this, but it's really fantastic and very, 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 very fun. Next, we have signets. So the first signet is the healing signet. This is what you've actually seen me wielding in the video. There really aren't many animations to go for here. This is the heal. If we activate it, you see the signet appears above our head and then breaks away into this like dust cloud. The idea is passively, this will always regenerate our health. If we choose to activate it, we get a small heal, but then it applies resistance to us. So one of the things that warriors actually tended to struggle with back in the days was condition pressure. This is now a tool they have to evade some condition damage. You've been condied really hard, well, maybe activate the heal signet to nullify their effects while they run out. And, you know, maybe get yourself to safety. It is a big cost to cast, but that utility is there. Next, you've got Signet of Might. Passively, you get power. Active, it's instant activation. There is no, you know, animation here. That was just me unsheathing my weapon. But what it will do is it'll give me stacks of unblockable. So my next few attacks, you know, they can't get around. So let's say someone's trying to block. Maybe I just trigger this, shield bash, weapon swap, kill shot or something, you know? Or maybe I just kill shot them straight through their block. It's your choice, and unblockable is something that warriors are actually pretty good at. There's a precision signet, that's Fury. This one actually plays like quite a lot because, you know, more precision, more crit chances tend to be pretty good. And when you activate it, it's double the amount of precision and ferocity as well, ferocity being crit damage. So you can passively just be critting a bit more with this, or when you activate it, and you actually do have to cast it, it's going to give you those stats hardcore. The really important thing here, though, is that it also maxes your adrenaline out. See how I was in combat there, but I had max adrenaline? So what that allows you to do, this is especially fun with rifle, you're at range with a rifle, and you can immediately shoot them once with a rifle to get in combat. Signet of Fury, you've already got kill shot, and it's going to be a supercharged kill shot because it's got all these stat bonuses attached to it, and then go crazy with it. There's a defensive signet here, the Signet of Stamina. You're going to be getting endurance faster just all the time. And then if you activate it, it's a full condition cleanse and even more endurance. It's basically one free dodge roll. If you look, I don't have any dodges. Trigger the signet, and I get a dodge back straight away. And then another signet I'm not showing you is Doliak's signet. Let's put it on this slot. Oh, I guess I can't show. I've accidentally put it on cooldown here. This is Doliak's signet. So this will passively mean you take less damage. It's toughness. And then when we activate it, it's a stun break signet. Stun breaks are important. Do consider them. And it will give you 10 stab. 10 stab? And a minor heal as well. I think that was New Balance giving you a heal. So Doliak Signet, if you want to play a really tanky warrior, this is the way to go. Finally, there's the Elite Signet, which I have had this whole time. So you'll notice a lot of these other signets is like health, and it's like, you know, power and toughness and precision. Well, this one passively gives you your profession resource, which is a really cool idea. So we're actually passively getting adrenaline from this one. Watch how I don't have to attack. I put myself in combat, and just the adrenaline is always coming in. Look at this. Now, it ticks at an interval. It doesn't say what the interval is here, but we can kind of get a sense of it as we're watching. It will just keep building up. Now, at various points throughout Guild Wars 2's development, this has actually been insane quality of life. Nowadays, I think you get adrenaline so easily in so many other places. The benefit of this passive is less pronounced. But this is very cool. And if one day you ever see they extend adrenaline, like with an elite specialization we haven't seen yet or something, that ends up giving you 5, 6, 7 stacks or whatever, all of a sudden, this is a really, really useful tool. If you want to trade away that passive and activate it, it's Fury, Might, and Swiftness all at once. Stances are next. Like Signets, there's not really much to talk about animation-wise here because they're just kind of background effects once you've activated them. There's also no elite stance. So do be aware of that. You can't go fully stances. The first one, though, here is Defiant Stance. This is really interesting in that it will flip any damage that you would take into healing. So as a heal all on its own, it's a really weak heal. It's not very good. But if you can trust that you're about to wade into a ton of danger, this can go from being a really weak heal to the best heal in the game. It can give you 100% of your health in one click of a button. Even better than that, it's actually like being invulnerable while the heal is active. Think about it. For those 4 seconds that Defiant Stance is on you, how are you going to die? All the healing, all the damage is becoming healing of any sort. So that is a very, very powerful thing to consider. It's got a long cooldown to balance it, though. So it's kind of, you know, a volatile skill. Frenzy, returning from Guild Wars 1. It gives us quickness and it gives us might. 10 might's a lot. And it's a good duration of quickness as well. This is what you want to do to turbocharge your 100 blades or whatever. If you're not Axe Offhand, you might look for quickness elsewhere. Frenzy's where you're going to get it. You will notice that this doesn't give you Fury. And Fury's really good if you're going for a big burst of damage. So try to get that from somewhere else. Next, you've got Balance Stance. I use that in this very video. This makes us immune to critical hits, which is okay in PvE, but not the best thing. But most importantly, it actually gives us stability. So we can't be pushed around. And again, that will cover us if we're trying some of these long animations. Endure Pain returns from Guild Wars 1. We are invulnerable during this time. Now, we can still be crowd controlled, and we can still take condition damage. But for flat damage, we're invulnerable. And good news, for most of you who are going to be running around in PvE, there isn't that much condition damage coming at you anyway. So this is pretty much like being invulnerable. So that's Endure Pain. This does have a pretty cool animation, as you can see here. And you'll see now, you could use Endure Pain and Defiant Stance and a shield. And you could be dodging with your weapon skills. And, you know, you can get very, very durable. The last one, because there's no elite, is actually Berserker Stance. This is a bit like the Signet in that it gives you adrenaline. You'll see it's pulsing adrenaline up. And it will pulse it up fast enough that even out of combat we're gaining it. But what most people like this for is the pulsing resistance. More condition immunity. So you could use the Heal Sig with this, and you've got 2 sources of resistance right there on your build if you're against a lot of condition damage. Another thing warriors can do is shout. Now, these tend to be AoE benefits for allies, but not all of them. They can often be very good about increasing your damage and increasing your allies' damage. And there's actually a trait that makes them heal too. So if you run like a healing power build with a Warhorn and all the shouts, you can be very supportive, like a battlefield support as a warrior. So first we have To the Limit. This is the heal. And you might be thinking, wow, does that heal everyone around me? Not all on its own. What it actually does is it gives people dodge rolls. Like, look at this. If I dodge and I dodge, when I use the heal skill, I'll get endurance. And everyone around me gets that endurance. So depending on other people's builds, that can be really strong. It also gives me max adrenaline, a lot like the Signet we looked at a second ago. So you can spend that to whatever you'd like to use here. So a really big kind of utility thing. It's an interesting skill in that I would have expected the AoE component to be something else, but there it is. Next, you've got 4 Great Justice. This is for everyone around you, massive might and massive fury. This has been a staple in a lot of the end game stuff over the years, and I'm sure will continue to have a place, even as fury and might get easy and easy to get in current balance. 4 Great Justice. You've got Shake It Off. This is mass AoE condition cleanse. It has ammo. You'll notice that these shouts have ammo here as well. This one's a stun break too, which makes it especially good. Shake it off. Lots of cleanses for you and your whole team. Really good, very renewable skill. And now we've got 2 other skills that are kind of offensive rather than defensive. First is On My Mark. So what this will do is 15 vulnerability to a target. And because it's a shout with no real like animation or whatever, like you're going to land it with super high quality of life. Look, I'm 1200 range away from this wolf. And he's just going to have the vulnerability on there. It's also reveal. So if that wolf wants to stealth to hide, he can't anymore. And what that's basically is that's my warrior saying, kill this guy. I'm going to target him. He's going to take 15% more damage. And you might say, well, hold on. How is that supportive to allies? You know, here I give all my allies might. Well, if you think about it, you've given your whole team 15% more damage through that vulnerability, haven't you? So it kind of is. I mean, unless there was already max vuln on there and now it's useless. So think about On My Mark in a world where you want more vulnerability, and especially think about it in a world where they're stealthing a lot. And finally, there is some crowd control. Fear Me. You might think fear is only for necromancers. Well, in truth, you can get it on warrior. This will make anyone close to you run away. It will apply weakness as well. Now, the closer you are, the longer the fear will last. So if you're building condition duration here, then, you know, you can scare them for a very, very, very long way. There's not too many ways you can combo it. This is probably the weirdest shout, you know, because a lot of the time if you want AoE, CC and stuff, you have other choices. But I do like Fear Me. It's an interesting skill, and it's like one that's got a very classic feel to it, so there you have it. There is no elite shout. They never did one, and I don't really know what they would go for with it. Lastly for skills, we have banners. So banners are conjured objects the warrior can put around the battlefield, and allies standing near them will gain benefits. So the banner of defense gives people toughness and vitality. Banner of strength, power and condition damage. Discipline, precision and ferocity. And finally tactics here as well. You'll notice that you can't have one build that has all of them. That's healing, power and concentration. The way the banners work at the moment is once they're placed, they'll just continue affecting the area. So if you want to like bunk down in a place. But if you want to move them, you've got to wait for the cooldown, or you can run over, pick it up, and it will come off cooldown for you to place in a new area. It used to be you actually carried the banners around, but the devs changed the way that the balance works. So there you have it, and you can just sort of run over and reclaim them. You'll notice that if you reclaim them super quick, there is still a little bit of a cooldown here. I've got to wait now. But that's the idea, and you can place them around. There is no healing banner, but there is an elite banner, and this is the battle standard. This guy works a little bit differently. This has an on-cast effect. So when you actually place it down, what it will do is rally your allies. If people are downstate, then they'll all get up, which is amazing. You can do that to 5 targets. You can completely turn around a party wipe with the battle standard by casting it on your dead allies, which is great. And not defeated, but downstate. The other thing as well, in the PvP formats, this will actually stomp enemies as well. So if they need to be stomped from range, you can actually cast the banner on them. The other big thing about this is, while the regular banners give you just attributes, this one gives you boons. So this gives you Fury, Might, and Swiftness. Here's the animation, by the way. It's a big, long, slow animation so that you can be interrupted in PvP or whatever. It looks really badass. I love this banner. And so the idea here is that you're actually getting these 3 kind of staple boons. You'll recognize they're the same boons that Signet of Rage gave, except these are AoE. The thing is, with this banner, it will run out its duration. It's not 100% uptime. And if I pick this up early here, you still see I've got 90 seconds before I do it again. So you're not going to be spamming this thing. But this is such a massive, like, swing moment for the team that you really do want to consider this if you're struggling, because you can save a lot of people's lives and keep them going. Banners are an especially important category of utilities for warriors throughout a lot of endgame metas, because they are increasing your power and ferocity and precision and stuff without needing boons. They can actually push players really high over the cap, so a lot of warriors often use banners. So there you have it. That's the warrior utility skills. Lots to pick from and supplement your weapons. Finally, let's look at the specializations.
Time to bust some heads. Hold that pose.
So as far as specializations are concerned, we could be talking a long time if we really wanted to. What I want to do, though, is give you guys a sum up of what each line is really all about. I want to talk about your main passives and the 3 most exciting traits, the grand master ones that we get at the end of the line. And so let's just run on through. First of all, with strength up here. Strength is going to be one of your 2 primary damage-oriented lines. While you have strength, your dodge roll becomes a damaging attack. This is called Reckless Impact. This is actually a really, really, really important trait, I think, for most warriors to learn about. The thing that separates most good warriors from most mediocre warriors, I think, is thinking about this. Very often, you can dodge on an enemy to be able to apply a bit of pressure. What's important about this dodge is that it's unblockable, first of all, so you can squeeze a lot of sneaky damage in with it. And the other thing is it does actually give you might, and you're going to see that there's a lot of reason that you want might, you know, just because it gives you extra damage, but a ton of traits help you with might, right? For example, and strength as a line is all about that. For example, this trait here, Pinnacle of Strength, might applied to us grants us more power. So what that means is, as a strength warrior, you get more value out of might than anyone else. You know, 250 might for you, sorry, 25 might is more for you than it is for anyone else. The other permanent passive is Building Momentum, which is what you've seen throughout this video. Whenever I use a burst skill, we've actually been getting a bit of endurance out of it, which helps us dodge, which helps us get more might, and so on. The 3 Grandmasters here, first you have Berserker's Power, gain increased damage whenever we burst, and then the damage is based on the amount of adrenaline that we spent. So what you'll see there is that if we use a T3 burst, and that could be any, that could be Arcing Slice, that could be Flurry, whatever, if we were maxed out, we'll get 21% more damage on everything we do following. So that's for the next 15 seconds. A little bit of trivia you guys might not know. It used to be that passively for Warrior, the more adrenaline you had, it just permanently bumped your damage. But ArenaNet didn't like this thing where people weren't ever using their burst skills anymore because, you know, it was like, what's the point in you know, I'm going to screw out myself out of that damage bonus. So now if you have a look, when I use Arcing Slice, oh, I never actually sorted the down trait. Well, anyway, that would be 21% more damage. So if I use this first, now I 100 blades, it's turbocharged 100 blades and everything else. Really cool synergies you can get there. Next, Might Makes Right. Check this out. Whenever we gain Might in any way, we gain a packet of healing and endurance. This is very strong. There are a million ways to get Might. Think about everything I've said already. This Signet, the shouts, the dodge roll I just mentioned. That means we heal when we dodge, all kinds of stuff. This is a very, very, very strong thing. If you're struggling at all in like PvE, I really suggest you guys look at this. And then there's actually a hammer trait as well. Merciless Hammer. Turbocharges a hammer, the skills recharge quicker, and we do increased damage. So just if you're running hammer, it's really fun to pair it with this hammer trait and experience all that new fun stuff. Sometimes with traits like this, you see that they augment one of the weapon skills into something totally new. That's not the case here, but whenever we CC someone, we do get adrenaline. So what does that mean? Well, I don't have a hammer equipped right now, right? But I do have a shield, so I can theoretically take this trait, this merciless hammer trait, and what that means is when I shield bash... Well, there's no enemies around anymore. What's happened? Oh, when I shield bash, I'm actually getting value from the trait because it's any CCs anywhere. Watch this. I shield bash in. And we get a whole bar of adrenaline just from the shield bash, all on its own. I think a lot of players don't think about that side of the trait because they get tricked seeing the hammer icon and the hammer name, and they don't realize, actually, hold on, I could be getting adrenaline out of Kick and Bull's Rush and Stomp. In fact, because Stomp's AoE... Oh, this does have an interval. That's a shame. I was going to say, because it's AoE. Oh, no, it did work. Yeah, look. We got max endurance from using Stomp there, right? Very cool combos. Next, let's have a look at Discipline. This is our other kind of damage-oriented line, I would say. Well, Discipline is kind of like the main line for warriors. It's kind of like the gel that holds the whole class together. The passives are really, really cool. First of all, Versatile Rage. We gain adrenaline on a weapon swap. This is what can make the Arcing Slice on Greatsword so strong, because you'll be fighting, say, on your sword shield, and then you weapon swap into this, and it's given you the adrenaline to smash out a quick F1. So very strong. Fast Hands. This is an amazing trait. This is such an iconic trait. If you speak to most warriors, they'll ask for this to just be an 8 to the whole class. Weapon swapping is faster. Wow. Yeah, most classes, have you guys noticed? Most classes take 9 seconds to weapon swap. Warrior doesn't. Warrior can do it real quick. So there are warrior runes in the game that reduce weapon swap as well. Unfortunately, they don't stack together, which sucks. But the Weapon Master Warrior does get this incredibly cool trait. Love it. Versatile Power gives us might whenever we weapon swap, and it reduces the cooldown on our burst skills. Like I say, Discipline is a really great line to pick up. No matter what kind of warrior you are, it gives you things that all warriors love. Weapon swap cooldown, better stuff with the burst. It's lots of fun. So first you've got Axe Mastery as Grandmaster. You get a ton of crit damage, which is what axes would love. Based on each axe that you have equipped, basically you can get more. And it drops their cooldown. It spams you with adrenaline as you use abilities. So remember that Axe 5? Well, now as you whirl around, it's just going to spam up your eviscerates real quick. Heightened Focus. Gain quickness whenever you strike a foe that's below the health threshold. This is actually a really fun trait because there's a lot of quickness. Let's say you don't want to use Frenzy. And let's say you don't want to use Axe Offhand. But you still want quickness. Well, you can take this trait. Watch. As I hit this wolf, when the wolf hits 50% health, I'm just going to suddenly get quickness. Look at that as a boon. And I can attack real quick. And I can blow people up. And it's 5 seconds. It's a good length of quickness. It really is. So consider it. I like this. And I don't use it enough. And then finally, Burst Mastery. Burst skills do more damage, 7%. So not that much, but they do more damage. But they also restore adrenaline and give you swiftness. God, these traits are so overloaded. They give you so much stuff. So now what happens if I come over and, I stomp my way in, for example. If I only have 1 bar... Oh, well, hold on. Let's just max that out. If I Arcing Slice now, watch. I don't go back to 0. I'm immediately already have this bar. So one of the differences between like Mace with its Skull Crack and Hammer with its Earthshaker is Skull Crack is really low cooldown. So if you can get enough adrenaline, you can just Skull Crack really regularly. And this trait would help you to do that, you know? And you can get adrenaline through other methods as well. Keep that really low. And don't forget, obviously, you can weapon swap. So you can Arcing Slice, weapon swap, and then straight away Flurry, right? Because you have that adrenaline there because of the refund. Next, we have Arms. This is also a really good pressure line. Can be useful for condition damage, lots of crit. A lot of warriors like Arms because of its Signet trait. Let's check this out. So, first of all, burst skills give us Fury. We get Deep Strikes, condition damage while we have Fury. A bit like this Might trait, but now it's a condition damage out of Fury thing. You get Bloodlust. Whenever we crit, no matter what we crit with, it's bleeds, and bleeds last longer. Really good to pair with Sword here. And the Signet trait is not actually a Grandmaster, but I do want to show it to you guys. Signet Mastery. Signets gain reduced recharge and grant ferocity on use. So, and then also when we attack people, we get a free extra Signet of Might. So what that means is you could run a build, and a lot of warriors do this. For open world general PvE, it's actually okay, right? And what they'll do is they'll just activate a ton of Signets, and you'll see this here, this Signet of Ferocity stack we get. It lasts for a whole minute, guys. So now we've got loads of ferocity here. There's actually a really fun cross-profession combo you can do with Guardian on this one, but I'll talk about that later. So yeah, that's an interesting trait you do see a lot. As for the Grandmasters, 100% crit chance on a burst skill, pretty self-explanatory. Critical hits grant bonus adrenaline and stacking condition damage. So again, if you want to play a Condi build, very useful. And dual wielding, this is actually my favorite. Attack speed is increased when wielding a main hand weapon in our offhand. So dual wielding won't work. We're not technically dual wielding if we have a shield or if we have a warhorn. But if we set ourselves up with an axe back there, if we're sword axe, we are now dual wielding. And what that means is even without needing quickness, we're always attacking faster. We're always more efficient with this. Now, to tell you the truth, according to my mind right now, I can't remember whether this quickness will stack on top of that. You guys will have to say down in the comments. But this is a very fun idea for a trait, one of the older ones, one of my favorite warrior traits that they've got. There's two more lines to pick from, which are not the damage lines, but are useful and interesting nonetheless. First, you have Tactics, which is a little bit more about area support from your allies. Marching Orders. As we fight, we get this thing called Soldier's Focus. And whenever we use a burst skill, we spend that Soldier's Focus to grant Might. So basically, by taking Tactics, we're spamming Might on our friends. Then we have Empowered. Do more damage for every boon we keep on ourselves, which is okay. Mending Might. Whenever we apply Might to an ally, we get healed. So what that means is whenever we burst and spend our Soldier's Focus, we heal ourselves, right? Or if we use any of these other mechanics, we're going to be healing ourselves. The Grandmasters are Martial Cadence. Soldier's Focus will now partially recharge all of our weapon skills whenever we activate it. So this is a really cool combo. This line got reworked recently, so a lot of this might be new to you guys. So if I use, you know, some high-powered cooldowns here, and now I flurry, did you see when I flurried, Whirling Axe suddenly chunked and it's like coming back? So this is really nice for Hammer as well. Do you remember all those combos I showed you with Hammer? How you can sort of spend the skills and then Earthshake and then that sets up your other ones? Well, now when you Earthshake, it's blinking back a ton more of your Hammer cooldowns and keeping the CC chains going. This is really, really nuts. Vigorous Shouts. This is what I talked about in the Shout section. Whenever we use a Shout skill, it heals around us. It's a really strong heal. In addition to that, we get extra healing power as long as we're building regular power. And it reduces the cooldown on all of our shouts. So if you want to play a healing, supporty, shout warrior, this is the way to do it. And finally, Phalanx Strength. You see this a lot in PvE. Whenever we give ourselves might, we grant it to nearby allies as well. So there is a Greatsword trait, which means whenever we crit with the Greatsword, I think it's crit, we give ourselves might. So you basically give yourself a ton of might on 100 blades. And if you pair that with Phalanx Strength, that means you're spamming out permanent might on all your friends as well. And you can give your whole team the cap of might just by fighting, which was very strong for a long time. Down to defense now. Defense is about our own sustain and keeping ourselves going. Thick Skin reduces our damage when we are high health. So as long as you're healthy, all incoming damage is reduced by 5%. Adrenal Health. Gain health spent based on adrenaline. So again, as we burst and spend adrenaline, we start healing up over time. This basically rewards you from very regularly proccing those bursts, which is kind of true for a lot of warrior stuff. Spiked Armor gives us retail whenever we block or get crit. Now, retail is very rare to come across, in general, I would say. And this is your source of it on Warrior. It's an entirely passive source too, really. It's just going to be triggering away, which, combined with your durability, is very, very nice. It's one of the biggest perks of defense, especially in areas where you're going to be getting hit a lot, like in Wild vs. Wild. Or in the past, it classically has been, if other people aren't giving you retaliation. Again, specific balance changes all the time. Next, we have a trait, Last Stand. This is for stances. So all of our stances are stronger here. They last longer. So remember, this stance basically makes us invulnerable. Well, it lasts longer now. Same with Endure Pain. Lasts longer now. We get longer stability, all of them. They also give us vigor as well. And you get a free stance when you are below 50% health. It will give you lesser balanced stance. So just a ton of stuff. It's a lot like the shout trait we looked at a second ago for the other line. Cleansing Ire. Gain adrenaline when we're hit and remove condies whenever we spend adrenaline. In the past, this has been a very strong way of getting rid of conditions. Not so much anymore. And finally, Rousing Resilience. If we ever stun break, we give ourselves a massive heal. And listen to this, guys. 1,000 toughness. 1,000 toughness. That's an amazing amount of raw stats that they give you for the next 8 seconds. It's nuts. Really, really fun idea and well worth playing with. So there you have it. That's a little bit of an overview of the specializations, some of the stuff that you can do, how they feel. You can obviously combo 3 of them in any way that you might like. And then there are, of course, 2 elite specializations. That's the Berserker and the Spellbreaker, with a whole heap of new stuff. They're mini classes within themselves, and I've already done videos on these. So if you guys enjoyed this introduction video, thank you very much. Please feel free to support the video in any way you like. And if you're still curious about more detailed Warrior stuff and advanced Warrior stuff, check out my videos in the introduction playlist on the Berserker and the Spellbreaker. Thank you all. Hope you learned a little something about Warrior, maybe got inspired to make one of your own, and I'll see you on the next one very soon. Take care now.